Good evening. My name is Ray Dwyer, and this is Dr. Joe Dispenza's Meditation and Book Discussion Group. Tonight, we're discussing Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Chapter 8 Meditation, Demystifying the Mystical, and Waves of Your Future. Dr. Joe begins this chapter on page 175. Quote, As I've said, one of the keys to breaking the habit of being yourself is working towards being more observant, whether that entails being more metacognitive or focusing more attention on your behavior and how elements in your environment might trigger emotional response. So the big question here is, how do you do all this? In other words, how do you become more observant? Break your emotional bonds with your body, the environment, and time, and close the gap. The answer is simple: meditation. And further down on page 176, it says, Now it's time to explain the inner workings of the process that I've referred to as meditation. There are a lot of meditative techniques, but in this book, my wish is to help you produce the most desirable benefit of meditation, being able to access the and enter the operating system of the subconscious mind so that you move away from the simply being yourself and your thoughts, beliefs, actions, and emotions to observing those things. When you move from unconsciously producing thoughts, beliefs, and actions and emotions and take control of them through the conscious application of your will, you can unlock the chains of being your old self to become a new self. How you get to the point at which you are able to access that operating system and bring the unconscious into your conscious is the subject we'll cover through the rest of this book. In the Tibetan language, to meditate means to become familiar with. Accordingly, I use the term meditation as a synonym for self-observation as well as self-development. After all, to become familiar with anything, you have to spend some time observing it. Key. What steps do you normally take when you get serious about doing something differently? You separate yourself from the external world long enough to think about what you do and do not do. You start becoming aware of many aspects of the old self, and you begin to plan a course of action related to the new self. On page 178. And if you begin to pay attention to your unconscious states of mind and body and become familiar with your autonomic unconscious programs until they become conscious, you would be meditating. The answer is yes. To know thyself is to meditate. Now let's take it one step further. Once you have become familiar with the old self, to extend that, no thought, no behavior, and no feeling will cause you to fall unconscious into the previous patterns. You might agree that it would be a good idea to become familiar with a new self. Accordingly, you may ask yourself, what is greater expression of myself that I would like to be? It helps create an internal representation of you to begin to focus on. And if you repeat this process every day, your ideal will become a familiar state of mind. Remember that word familiar. It's how your mind works. One more point. If you attend so well to the thought you are focusing on that it literally becomes an experience, then the end product of that is an emotion. That tells you that your heart's involved. That's a big flag. And once that emotion is created, you begin to feel like your new ideal, and that new feeling will start to become familiar. That word ideal is very important because you don't want to imagine or pray in or meditate in a halfway mark. You want to reach into heaven and get the absolute ideal of what you're working for. Page 180. Let's summarize here. According to our working model of meditation, all you have to do, as if that's an easy thing, is remind yourself who you no longer want to be until this becomes so familiar that you know your old self, the thoughts, the behaviors, and emotions connected to the old you that you want to change. To the extent that you unfire and unwire the old mind away and no longer signal the same genes in the same way, this is epigenetics in reverse. Then you repeatedly contemplate who you do want to be. As a result, you will fire and wire new levels of mind to which you will emotionally and genetically, there's that epigenetics word, you will emotionally and genetically condition the body until they become familiar and a second nature to you. That's change. See, when you do this right, you change so energetically that your very personal energy changes. That changes the environment of your body, and that environment in your body tells your genes to manifest differently, to um, express the rules of that gene differently, to express not stress but joy, and the chemical release in your body changes. The second definition of meditation, cultivating self. Besides the meaning in Tibetan, to meditate in Sanskrit means to cultivate self. My hope is that you understand by now that it is impossible to create any new future when you are rooted in the past. This requires our daily mindful meditation. Again, none of this is done on a whim, and little is left to chance. It is so much by choice. Over on page 182, to sum up the meditative process, you have to break the habit of being yourself and reinvent a new self. Lose your mind and create a new one. Prune synaptic connections and nurture new ones. Unmemorize past emotions and recondition the body to the new mind and emotions. And let go of the past and create a new future. That expression, let go, you'll hear me say many times. That is my definition of forgiving the past. Forgiving you, forgiving them, forgiving the sky that fell on you. Let go. Over on page 183, to break the habit of being yourself, you would be wise to select one trait, propensity, or characteristics and focus your attention on that single aspect of your old self that you want to change. The process of change requires unlearning first, then learning. Everything you are and will be, you already are and will be. So what's the problem? The problem is we have been educated in limitations. We've been educated in separations. We have been educated in lack. So think of this sentence again. The process of change requires unlearning first, then learning. As you unlearn, you will find that what you're looking for is there already in your heart. Those are my words. When those thoughts and feelings that used to signal the body are stopped by your conscious effort, the liberated energy from those limited emotions is released into the field. You now have energy with which to design and create a new destiny. Our lives are a matter of stress expression, and that's part of our survival. That's not fault, that's the design. But when you finally sit and relax and let go of the messages and the teachings and the ideas and the images of stress and survival, those energies return home into your being and do what their primary purpose is, and that's to give you a healthy, happy, loving life. Only when we make that separation can we change. Only when we think greater than the big three, the first three energy centers, can we truly live independent of them and reestablish dominion over how we think and feel on a daily basis. Awareness comes first. Recognizing when and how those programmed responses take over is essential. When you move from the unconscious to the conscious, you begin to close the gap between how you appear and who you are. If you want to know who you are, you ought to hear my little video on titled Trust. You are I am. Yeah. When you get that, you made some big crossings. Research has discovered a wide scope of brainwave frequencies in humans, ranging from very low levels of activity in delta to, to a twilight state in deep sleep beta, imagination state alpha, and the higher frequency used in daily thoughts such as beta waves. Once you know what all these domains are, you will be more adept at knowing when you are in the brainwave state where the ego tries to in vain to change the ego, and when you are in the brainwave state that is fertile ground of true change.
Avoid going out with um avoid going out with people who were, wanting to do the things that I wanted to quit doing, which was smoking. So it was really hard because I would have to say no, and I had to stop myself from going out with socializing with people who were also smoking, and I would have to like try to come up with excuses not to go, even though I really wanted to go. So that was the hard part about breaking the habit of being myself, who I was a smoker, and everything that was connected to being a smoker. I had to try to avoid and take all these things out of my daily routine just so that I can stop becoming a smoker, and that helped me. So I just wanted to share that because breaking a habit and creating a new habit, which was the new habit that I had to create, was that I was a healthy person. And so when I started saying I'm a healthy person and I started doing exercises, I started working out, I started eating healthy, I replaced the habit of, smoking cigarettes with doing all the things that consisted of being a smoker, and I replaced it with new habits of eating healthy, going to work out at the gym or exercising, and avoiding avoiding the things that were toxic and that were not healthy for me, which was including the friends, the going out. Unfortunately, I had to give up certain people, so that I wouldn't be influenced to doing that again. And that was like certain things that we have to do as well when we're breaking the habit of being our old selves to become a different version of us. We have to let go of everything that is connected to that is influencing us, so that we can become a different version of ourselves and start hanging around with people um who are like influencing us to be healthy and giving us, a healthier mindset, so we can be like them, be healthy like them. So that's what how I quit smoking, is exactly how Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about breaking the habit of being the identity of what we're connected to, and creating a new one. That's
I have a
what.
question for you. Did you reach a point where you could say, I'm free of the call, that habit, and I can now choose? For instance, you can now choose to have coffee without the need for cigarettes. You could now choose to go out with your friends without being pulled into smoking cigarettes. Have you reached a point where you can do those other things and be free of cigarettes?
That's a really good question, actually. But the universe has a part in it all. So
Yes.
the universe actually, because I changed my frequency, the universe took away everybody that smokes. So I have no one in my life that
I
smokes.
like that. I can relate to that. I can
So
relate to that.
yeah, and I don't
I've got
smoke. And I do, and I can choose to have friends that have smoke, and I can also choose to have coffee. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink coffee anymore. And actually, I'm sensitive to coffee, so my body actually rejects caffeine. And I
but
guess that's
you answered the question. Your whole beingness changed, so the circumstances of that smoking environment isn't part of you anymore. That's
exactly.
kind of part of the answer I was looking for. Yeah, it took you time, and now you changed so much that that whole environment associated with it is no longer a part of you.
That's right.
That's what we were after right there. And that is a good example of changing a character that can be very tenacious, and you just change your whole world and just walk away from it.
Exactly. So I became a yoga teacher. So
Well,
that's
that'll do it.
so that was like the total shift of it all. So I became a healthy, conscious, and totally opposite of what I was before. And I
Great.
changed my personality, exactly what he mentions in the book.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. Let's go into the next question. That was really good. That was a clear beginning to end conversation. That was good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Farah, I see your hand up.
Yes, hi. My question kind of ties into this sense of identity. Maybe it's related to it a little bit, but how would someone get over heartbreak?
Heartbreak is like having a death in the family. And love hurts. I take it. Falling in love is an act of courage. It really is, because love has a chance for that kind of heartache, and it's trauma to the deepest part of the soul. And just like any other trauma, it takes time to be able to release that hurt in your soul. Uh, the healing goes to knowing who and what you are. As long as your self image is deeply tied to that relationship, you're holding on to it. You've got to change the definition of who you are, and listen to that video I made about trust. I am. It frees you at least to some degree, uh, to heal from those type of losses. I am no way devaluing the pain of a broken heart. I know it, but knowing that you are more than that relationship, knowing that your true heart is an independent, divinely inspired being, it gives your heart a place to go inside of you to find self love and not be dependent on the love outside of you. Yeah, I think self love is a path to healing that. But I'm not saying it's easy in the smallest way. I can but self love and releasing it is still the pathway. I hope that answered a little bit. You got muted, Fiora. Okay. Patricia, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to go back for a second, ask Lynn. She mentioned several things, but they're very concrete in this world kind of things, like not going to a certain place in the real world, or, in this world that we live in, not, having a certain substance in this world. I want to know how meditation played a part of that change, because a very good book is other than Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, is the Atomic Habits one. Talks about a lot of things like that, about getting rid of things that are associated with what you're doing, that
Okay,
you can do
Lynn.
here and now. So I'm wondering how also there was an integration of meditation that helped transition, or if there was.
All right, Lynn, can you keep it short and to the point?
Hold on, let me unmute her.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm not sure what her name was.
Patricia.
So, Patricia. Yeah, so meditation, I was starting to do meditation, but it wasn't from Dr. Joe Dispenza. I was just meditating on my own, just like learning how to meditate. So it was really fresh and new for me. So I was doing a lot of mostly just personal development work on myself. It wasn't more meditation. It was more self-work on my mindset rather than meditation. Yeah. So it was just the beginning of at the end of it, I started meditating, starting to learn to meditate, but it wasn't from any of the Dr. Joe Dispenza work. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
All right, Patrice, I think we're ready to continue.
Okay, so the next topic in this chapter is really the electrical waves in the brain, right? And he goes into a lot of detail. We're not going to go into so much detail here. You can go to page 190, where he shows all the different waves. And as a summary, right? When we're young, we come into this world and our brain has waves with lower frequency, right? Which help us absorb, all the knowledge, right? Where basically this allow us to go inward and to be creative. As we get older, we start getting in an adult into the beta brain waves, right? Which are high frequency. And these waves, while they allow us to concentrate, right, and to also take care of ourselves, they are also waves that are related with stress, right? And since we are constantly in stress, right, that is not really beneficial for us. So let's go a little bit deeper on page 191. He talks about the 3 levels of beta waves: the low range, mid range, and high beta, right? So he says that the lower range is where relax, interest, attention, right? Let's say you're enjoying reading a book, right? You're doing something that requires your attention, but not intensive. As you move into the mid-range, right, is produced during focused attention on sustained external stimuli, learning, for example, something that really interests you, right, where you need to have to pay attention. And then high beta is characterized by any brainwave pattern, right, that is observed during stressful situations where those nasty survival chemicals are produced by the body. Maintaining this sustained focus in such as high arousal, right, is a focused attention which really doesn't allow learning, creating, dreaming, or problem solving. And unfortunately, for many of us that have trauma, we are constantly in high beta, right? In other books, they call it hypervigilance, right? So this is a level of stress that we constantly have because we constantly feel that we're in fear, right? Or fear that something that happened in the past could happen to us again. And this is very detrimental to the body and as well as to the mind. So high beta is the electrical wave that we have in the brain that is connected to short-term survival, right? But unfortunately, really, for us, is a long-term effect. So he says nature has gifted us with the fight or flight response, right? Which is associated with this high beta. In the short term, it says this serves as well, right? Because it's gonna allow us to signal danger, right? Or something that we should be preventing. But when we have it constantly in our body, is really what causes the stress. And what it causes is the brain to also have signals that are not coherent. We're not gonna go into a lot of details. You wanna talk about coherence, Ray? Oh no, okay. So the other issue with beta is that the world appears to be more real than the inner world. And when people are in high beta constantly, it's very hard for them to get in touch with themselves, right? It's very difficult to just to sit and get in touch with your inner self. So we need to find a way to get rid of these high beta waves and go into alpha, delta, and theta. And that's the next part, and he's going to explain, right? How do you do that? Any questions? So then he says, why does it take such an effort to let go of the external world and go within? At the bottom of page 195, he says, in view of the emotions that grip you, you are thinking in the past and trying to predict the next moment based on your past. And your brain can't process the present moment. There's no room for the unknown to show up in your world. The answer lies outside the emotions we're wrestling with and the thoughts you're overanalyzing because they keep you connected to the past. Any comments or questions? And then on page 199, he starts talking about awareness, right? Which is really key for us. Because he says awareness, not analysis, permits entry into the subconscious mind. And we said at the beginning of the chapter that meditation was, right, the way in which we go into the subconscious mind. He says here is a way for you to know if you're in beta state. If you're constantly analyzing, you're in beta. The expression paralysis by analysis, right, is when you're in beta. Actually, awareness can exist outside of analysis. When you are aware, you may think, I am feeling angry. When you're analyzing, you go beyond that simple observation to add, why is this page taking so long? Why is this woman talking so much, right? That is the big difference between being aware and being analyzing. Awareness, he says, as I mean it to be practiced here, is simply noting, watching a thought or feeling and moving on, right? So you're noticing, you're observing, right? You're not asking why. In the pages that follow, right, he shows different pictures of the mind, right? And if you go to page 2002, right, he shows a circle that shows that our mind is 95% subconscious mind and only 5% conscious mind. So what that means is every day, right, we're functioning based on what our subconscious mind is telling us, right? And what is telling us is all based on the past, right? So we're controlling only 5%, even we believe that we have free will, right? In page 2003, he says figure 8I, he says, illustrate the most fundamental purpose of meditation, right? Representing by the arrow, to go beyond the analytical mind. The analytical mind is what separates the subconscious from the conscious mind. Meditation opens the door between the conscious and the subconscious mind. We meditate to enter the operating system of the subconscious, where all those unwanted habits and behaviors reside, and change them to more productive modes to support us in our life, right? So unfortunately, right, as somebody was talking before about that fear, right? And that happens to me, right? I have this fear, but I don't know where it's coming from. So most probably it's coming from something that happens to me in the past, right? That is in the subconscious mind and is triggered by something that is happening in the present. But it's very hard for me to understand why, because it's in the subconscious. Any comments, questions, experiences? So then we go to page 2005 at the top. He says, thus, it is quite possible to consciously alter your brain waves from that high beta state to alpha or theta. During meditation, you transcend the feelings of the body, are no longer at the mercy of the environment, and lose track of time. You forget about your identity, right? And Lynn, you were talking today, right? About your identity, right? That you were so identified with that person that you were before. So when you go into meditation, we forgot about the big three and we forget about our identity. And then he says, then when you restfully pay attention, concentrate and focus in a relaxed manner, you automatically activate the frontal lobe, which reduces synaptic firing in the rest of the neocortex. Therefore, you lower the volume to the circuits of the brain that process time and space. This allows your brain waves to naturally slow down to alpha. Now you're moving from a state of survival into a more creative state, right? So that's what meditation does, right? You move from your conscious to your subconscious. Your waves move from beta to alpha to theta to delta, right? And you go from survival to creation. And that's really what allows you to create the new self.
Yeah, I put a little side note on that. Have you ever gone through a time in your life where you can't do art, you can't draw, there's no creativity? Well, that's the symptom of being in survival. And so when you finally calm down and find peace in your life and you feel like, okay, it's time to do something creative. I don't care if it's make music or cook a fancy dinner. That urge to create is a symptom of that lower mind wave of alpha. It's a really pretty thing. You can see it in people who have a real struggle in life and then they get happy and they just want to either play in the kitchen or clean house or do something creative. That means they've healed and they're starting to walk in that alpha wave.
And it's difficult, and I can explain for experience, right? When you are so much in beta during your whole life, even to let go is very difficult, right? To lower those. That's why when you in these meditations that we have been doing, right, constant, you expand your focus, right? That's why that's what allows you really to stop thinking and let go of the analytical mind, right? This is what's the correct word? The expanded focus, right? Not the convergent focus. I think we have a question, Farah. Let me unmute you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Beatrice. That was really good. I think I put a couple of puzzle pieces together because I feel like I am, and when you're over analytical and you're analyzing, you're in too much beta state, correct? Like that's what I've
Correct,
heard.
yes.
Okay, because I feel like I fight myself even with meditation, and it's my beta state like working against me, I feel like in a way.
Right, but as you sense, right, when he says, the space, right? So you sense the space that is, many meditations, right? On your right, on your left. The most you expand your focus, the more the analytical mind is gonna start to disappear.
Yes, it's like, so it's like a muscle you have to keep
Mm-hmm.
working out. So my beta waves are strong. Now I need to make the
Yes,
other waves
unfortunately,
stronger.
right.
It's making sense. Thank you so much.
Any other comments anybody else wants to share? Okay, so then when you go to page 2006, right? He shows that, he says, well, when is the best time to meditate? And for him, he says, I like to wake up early in the morning to begin the process, right? I'm still a little bit dreamy. I'm still in alpha. So that's what happens, right? When you wake up in the morning, right, you are in alpha waves and you start, with your day, you start, going into beta, right? So he says, I personally like to create from a clean slate. So as your day progresses, if you want to meditate at noon, it's going to be much more difficult because you're going to be in high bed already. You're working or you do whatever chore in the house. So it's going to take a lot more from you to go into the alpha and theta and delta waves. Other people prefer the nighttime, right? The same thing happens at nighttime. Before you go to sleep, you go into alpha waves again. I think we have a question from Liv. I'll unmute you, Liv.
Hi, I just had a quick tactical question. How long from waking up do we stay in alpha?
I don't, and it's not very long. I don't know exactly how long, but it's not very long.
Okay.
That's why, not only Dr. Joe, but, the Silva method, all those meditations are done immediately after, you brush your teeth or you go to the bathroom. But do you know, Ray, how long you stay in alpha?
Well, it's a case by case. If you wake up in the morning, roll over and start hitting your connectivity, your Wi-Fi and your Facebook and your WhatsApp and your chat channels, you're out of alpha and nothing flat. But if you give yourself time to sit and rest and let your heart wander in a meditation for a little while, then it will last longer. So it's just a person by person. There are sometimes I wake up and it's like I'm not in my alpha when I wake up. It's just I wake up and I'm awake and I go to sit down and my eyes are open, my heart's going. It's like, okay, it ain't happening today. So I just start my day. But I have days like I've been doing this for a while and I still have days where I just sit down and go, forget it, I'll do it later. And I just kind of start my day. So it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, I prefer to meditate. I meditate a lot during the day, but my favorite time is nighttime. So we're all different, right? So then on page 2008, he says, taking control of the progression into meditation. He says, inward contemplative praxis retain the mind and body and brain to become present instead of being stressed in anticipation of some future event or obsessing about the past. Meditation lifts the anchor of the body-mind out of the past and free you from the emotion that keep you hooked to the same familiar life. The object of in meditation is to fall like a further down from the top of a building, slowly and steady, right? And then he started talking about coherence, which is a very important topic that maybe one day we can really, I was thinking, Ray, we can maybe give more attention to the Heart Math Institute, right, with coherence. But the other issue with the beta brains is they're very incoherent, right? So your brain is not organized. So as you go into alpha, theta, and delta, those waves are much more coherent. And we know that once the heart is coherent, it's going to communicate to the brain also in a coherent way, right? So that is the benefit of having a coherent heart. When you have a coherent heart, you have a coherent brain, right? And then that's when the magic happens. I don't know if you want to add anything, Ray.
Well, when I first started this work, I didn't really understand it until I started remembering some friends of mine who were worry heads, which is kind of an extreme case of it. But it's like they had 6 things on their mind at any given moment. They were about as clear example of incoherent as you could be. Most of us hide our incoherence because we keep a list in our hearts and our minds. And so we're kind of checking on things around us all the time, our environment, our chores, what are the kids doing? And we got this list working in us. Okay, so it's not real pressure, but it's still a list. And so we're very incoherent. Meditation is to get down to one thought, one tone, one frequency, one path, one energy. And it takes practice to put away all those different things. And that's why you go through the energy centers. The first energy center, to put away the worries and stresses of the body and put it away. That's part of the purpose of meditating on it, is for you to give yourself the idea, okay, I'm putting away all my stresses in my body. I feel my body and it's okay. I'm just sitting here. You go to second center and you say, I'm putting away the stresses of an environment. I know the world is what it is, but as I sit here this moment in this place, my little world about me is at peace. And you practice drawing your energies for your environment in. And in that short time that they're with you, you heal a little bit. And you have to practice this because we're in a habit of having scattered environment, always safe here and here, and hypervigilant to different degrees. And so we sit here and we tell ourselves, I am at peace. I am at peace. I am lighting my second energy center. I am thinking of it for the purpose of drawing those energies home. My third energy center, I'm worried about the past. I'm worried about the future. What are the kids going to do tomorrow? Look what happened yesterday. I messed that up. And our timeline's all messed up. So when you get in the third energy center, you bring it all down. I am here. I am now. I am at peace. And you practice doing this, and that will bring you into the habit or into the skill even of being coherent. And so when you get to your heart center, you are present moment. I am here. I am safe. I am fine. I am at peace. And I am in my heart. And I am in love with me. And that's an important step. That's going from incoherence to coherence in a short little talk.
Right. So he really has a long explanation here about coherence, right? But I think that the main points from what we discussed today is that in order to change, it has to be intentional, right? We need
Yes.
to first decide that we want to change, right? who we don't want to be and who we want to be. This is not something that we do once in a while. It has to be done every day, right? As he says, there's not a bad meditation, right? You just have to do it. The time is whatever time works for you. He recommends early in the morning or late at night. But if midday is the day that you can make time for it, it's better do it at midday than don't do it at all. We also learned that meditation has different definitions, but at the end of the day, with Dr. Joe's meditation, what he wants to do is for you to be able to let go of the analytical mind and open the door between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, right? So allow your subconscious, right, to open up so your conscious mind can access your subconscious mind, and then when you can produce the change. And remember that every day we're driven by this 95%, right? So we really need to get to know it in order for us to change. Because unfortunately, many of us believe that we have free will, but however, we're being controlled by the subconscious, right? That's why also meditation is so important. It's really to realize who you really are and the behaviors that you have. I don't know if I'm missing any other key point, Ray. So basically we go from knowledge to do it to being, right? So we're acquiring the knowledge, right? And we've been doing some meditation, and moving on, we're gonna even focus more on meditation, right? But it's very important that now that we have the basic knowledge, we're in the second step that is really doing it, right? So we being and becoming. Anybody wants to share anything? Hi, Lynn. Let me just unmute you. Go ahead.
I have a question. So in Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation, he always, when I first started listening to his meditations, I got really scared and annoyed because he was yelling.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. So I've heard a lot of people say that. What's he yelling for?
yeah. So I would just get scared and I couldn't like get into it because I would get scared. But he would say something like, feel it, and he would yell it and yell it. And
I agree with you, Lynn. It takes a little getting used to.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, what is he trying to say? Feel what? Feel getting scared? Like what is he talking about? So I always wondered what is the definition of why does he yell and say feel it?
His first book, Evolve Your Brain, explains that every word he uses has been tested. Even the tone he uses has been tested to motivate and to get people out of their comfort zone to work at it. That's why he calls it work. Haven't you ever been part of a football team or sports team, and the coach, come on, do it, you can do it, work harder, and the coach is yelling at you, and you're just giving it all you've got. It's a little bit like that.
Yeah. And remember that Dr. Joe's meditations are, his main thing is change, right? There are other meditations for internal peace, right? That doesn't mean that you will not get it with Dr. Joe, but the main intention is change, right? So they're a little bit different than other,
Right.
Yeah. So I guess it's trying to get us into a motivated state or something to change or uncomfortable. You said, right? Right?
Yeah. It's like a coach on a sports team yelling at you, trying to push you out of your comfort zone.
Okay.
Because it's a different method, a different mindset of meditation I've ever had anywhere. It's not a peaceful meditation. It's more like a sport that you're trying to achieve something.
And his
Because you're,
meditations are work, right? It's not other
yeah,
meditations. You know, it requires energy to do Dr. Joe's meditations.
right. Now, as you get experienced in Dr. Joe's work and you get past the first 50% of it, there are meditations that are much more graceful, much more gentle. But in the beginning, we're fighting against 95% of our brain that is trying to do something else. And he's just trying to lead the parade and cheer you on and say, come on, you can do it. Change, do it. Don't give in, don't quit, don't compromise. You can do it. Change. Of course, the one that really kicked me out was space, and space. And I used to go, what in the world is space? But eventually I got that one too.
Okay, we have Connie. You can unmute, Connie.
Yes, actually, that was a good conversation. Just then, I was going to say what Ray did. It's interesting about yelling. I think that's very interesting, especially, I don't know, I'm a woman, so I don't know how it is to a man, but I know like in the military, men maybe are more used to it, like in boot camp or something, but I didn't have any fear of it. It's interesting to me because I felt his energy of go. It was more like that, even though it was loud, it wasn't a yelling as if someone was yelling at me. But I'm glad that this kind lady that brought the subject up, because it really is energizing me, and it is bringing my breath up, when I'm sorry to use chakras, but up my spine, or the different points, and it is encouraging me. So yeah, I'm glad to have heard this little bit of the conversation. I love it. And it definitely energizes me. I've never had an energizing meditation before. So I'm excited. Thank you so much for the opinions.
Good. Thank you, Connie.
Christy, you can unmute.
I was going to say, the first time I ever listened to one, I was almost laughing at the intensity of it, but it's the enthusiasm, and it kind of reminds me of the old Richard Simmons exercise classes.
I'm old enough to know what you're talking about. That's
right,
good.
you talk about getting these images in your mind, and when he does it, I have this. It's like a calisthenics class for your brain, and I feel like we're all in this exercise class, and that's what he's trying to get you to do. He's trying to motivate you to exercise your brain, to exercise the capability and the capacity of your brain and what you can do with it. And he is like little Richard Simmons of our brain, but that's just my own little weird fantasy of it. I thought.
Oh, that was good.
Very good.
All right, let's go to page 212. This paragraph in 212 I marked as the most important paragraph of this chapter. So if you got the book, here we are on page 212. When we make a decision, that is the line in the sand. Dr. Joe's meditations, as we just talked about, are not casual, quiet, peaceful. It's sit down and I'm going to do the work. I'm going to draw a line in my mind and I am going to decide. When we make a decision that strongly and have a clear intention, See, there's a couple parts of that clear decision. It's strong emotional, and it's a clear intention for what our new reality will look like. The clarity and coherence of those thoughts produce corresponding emotions. Let me make it a little better. A clear intention is the mind. A clarity and coherence means a heart. So you got your mind and heart going together, and those thoughts produce a corresponding emotion. And so now you got a heart emotion going, and as a result, our internal chemistry changes. Dr. Joe says your body should feel it. So you got a chemistry changing now. Our neurological makeup is altered. You got nerve endings that are rewiring. Some are disconnecting and some are connecting. Our internal chemistry changes. Our neurological makeup is changing. We prune old connections and sprout new ones. And we even express our genetic code differently. And expressing our genetic code differently is called epigenetics. And that is profound idea to me, because we are given a set of genetics, but we were taught wrong. At least I was taught wrong about how those genes work. Those genes you have don't have one thing and there you are and you're stuck. No, these genes are like little general processors, and they can produce a variety of things. And when you change that coherence in you, you are changing the environment in you. That environment in you gives different chemicals, and those different chemicals instruct your genes to produce different things. And the change in you can be abrupt sometimes. I mean, and you get up off the floor a different definition of who you are. That is the most important paragraph in the Senate, in this paragraph, to know that you can change in one meditation who you are. And that will actually not only change how you feel, but your genes themselves will operate under different instructions. And you can heal, you can have clarity of mind, you can have peace of heart by that outline in that little paragraph. I'm sorry, that paragraph got me excited on this chapter. That's what I had to say. Okay, back to you, Patrice.
I think we cover, we didn't go too much into coherence, right? But that's the last, after page, you read the paragraph in 212, right? Then he goes into a little more into coherence, and he says, in time, if you repeatedly create internal coherence, because there's an example of the monks, right? You too may walk into the external environment and no longer suffer the self-limiting effects of its disruptive stimuli. A little bit what Lynn was talking about, right? That she can now be in an environment where people smoke and she doesn't need to smoke. And because of that, you won't experience, right, the knee-jerk reaction that formerly forced you to return to the old familiar self that you were so eager to change. By persisting with meditation and creating coherence within, you will not only remove a lot of the negative physical conditions that plague your body, but you can also progress toward that ideal self you've envisioned. Your inner coherence can counteract negative reactionary emotional states and allow you to untraumatize and memorize also the behavior, thoughts, and feelings that make them up, right? So one key word here is by persisting with meditation, right? I know that, when people go to the retreats, on and off, somebody has a one key meditation, but in general, this is something that has to be done consistently, right? We might be lucky and have one wonderful meditation, but in general, right, we all need to work at it. And he repeats that in the next page, right? The knowledge you've gained has allowed you to ascend to this point. Now you're ready to apply everything you've learned, and your newfound wisdom should inspire to forge ahead to, to the rest of part 3, where we're really going to go into meditation, right? So we acquire the knowledge, now we have to do it, to become it and to be it.
Right. From knowledge to doing to being. Exactly right. Any questions? Any discussions? Yeah, we touched on some good points. The overall review is pretty common information by the time you get this far. But the most important part that I wanted you to see is the potential to deeply change and heal yourself emotionally as well as physical. My healing was so abrupt when I had my profound energy change. It still amazes me, just because I remember who I was and I go, this happened to me, this old grumpy old army guy, like, are you kidding? But I did the work. I had the event. I changed my energy and my cancer healed. And that can be portrayed in 100 different ways. So that was the biggest thing. This is a kind of a pep rally chapter where, come on, you can do this. It's worth the work, but it has to be deep and it has to be coherent. It doesn't change you by being incidental and idle and wandering. You got to really bring it home and change your heart. Lady Julie, I see your hand up.
Oh, thank you, whoever unmuted me. Okay, so hi, Ray, and then thank you for this discussion. Beatrice as well, thank you for leading the chapter. I just have a small experience to share. When I went to the heart math presentation with Jake in the local
Yes.
yeah. So when I went there, so I volunteered, go up and try the device, and then so I was really worried that how if I'm not coherence, and then the device gonna measure me not coherence, right? So I was like doing the breathing. The breathing is take deep breaths and we hold, and we breathing out and we hold, right? So the whole process, I was up there. I was so little afraid I'm not in the coherent state. So I keep my breathing when I'm listening to Jake's presentation. I found that extremely present. And somehow the concentration of focus on breathing helping me not thinking about something else. So I just wanted to share that if you have, want a deep listening to somebody, of course, not the reason not be coherent to begin with, then maybe you can try that breathing technique. So.
Yeah, that is the foundation of the first part of Dr. Joe's work, is to give you work. Focus. Come on, you can do it. And that way you get all your mind doing the work on your body, and you start shedding the things of your day, your shopping list, your kids, your this and that, and you bring it all in, and it just seems to put the world away. Yeah, I know when I use my heart math tool, I get my best scores when I quit trying to do other stuff and I just focused on the breathing, because I want to do a heart, this, and I want to do that, and I want to get it fancy, and I want to push harder. No, forget all that. Just breathe. You got muted or something.
Who's that? Julie?
Okay.
Okay.
There, we're back. No, she's muted again.
She can unmute now.
Yeah, okay.
There.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll just keep saying 100%. Really, it is exactly what you say. There's nothing I was trying to add. I was got muted, so sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Julie. That was good. Are we done?
I'm done. Sorry. I was trying to find the mute button, but I can't.
No, I mean,
Mute
I
to
was
me.
kind of asking Beatrice, are we done?
Yes, we went over the whole chapter 8, right? So unless people have any more questions, comments, anything else they want to share?
Well, it looks like we're done. A little early tonight. Rest my voice a little bit. Maybe next week I'll be a little bit more normal. Just for the fun, I'm going to take it off record. This ends chapter 8.